Well, if you're starting a business out of passion, you should name it like the most defining characteristic about yourself. I was adopted. That really screwed me up as a kid. And she's like, no, that sucks. And I was like, well, I'm an only child. And she's like, Only Child Brewing Company. And then I was just like, it's actually really funny. And like, you could name like a beer like Spoiled Brad, and it just started steamrolling, and then it just stuck. And then I got married and had a bunch of kids, and everyone says, why is it Only Child Brewing when you have an army of children behind you? Because it's about me.
Cheers.
You stumbled on into the Tap Takeover Podcast.
Just over the Wisconsin-Illinois border, a stone's throw from Six Flags Great America is Only Child Brewing Company. Founded by a husband and wife team, this family-centric brewery has been churning out great craft beer since 2013. Today we are joined by Ben, the founder, head of brewery operations, self-proclaimed Jedi, and dad joke teller.
What's up?
And Charlotte, the taproom-manager, sender of emails, social media guru, and website-stated glue that holds it all together.
Hi, guys.
I was going to say, someone's been reading the website.
Right?
For sure.
Thank you both for hosting us, and welcome to the Tap Takeover Podcast.
Oh, welcome. Thank you guys for coming.
So the first question we always ask is, if you were to take over the taps at the Tap Takeover Podcast, what beers would you guys use to tell the Only Child Brewing Company story?
Kind of a tricky question just because of our size and kind of our adventuristic spirit that we take brewing. We don't always brew the same beers. We do have a couple staples, which we'll definitely be sampling today. You know, I think it's when you look at our tap list at any given time, it's more so the styles of beers that we have that more kind of explain Only Child. You're always going to come in here and have a variety of lagers on draft, which not every place does, just because that's my assistant brewer Harrison and I, all of us here actually predominantly drink lagers. They're my favorite style of beer, and I'm really actually kind of liking seeing the trend go that way. You know, it's more so just kind of the Only Child attitude, the names of the beers, and just, I don't know, the only thing we really take seriously here is the quality of our beer, and the rest, you know, we just kind of have fun with and roll with. So it's kind of up our alley.
Awesome.
You know,
That's cool. So what's the first beer up on the tap for us today?
Well, this is probably the one we're a little bit infamous for is Stigma Crusher. It's kind of our take on Miller Lite. It's an American light lager. It's only 3.5%. Being in the Midwest, surrounded by cornfields, we use flaked maize, flaked corn in the beer. It is dry hop, so there's a little bit of a light bite to it, but it's tough to make a 3.5% beer that light, and that nuanced and flavorful. But like the name, we crush the hell out of that beer a lot around here. So,
well, this is an interesting choice because, we've been to tons of breweries, and every time we're there, we hear the people go up to the bar that have been there for the first time and say, do you have anything comparable to Miller Lite? So It's a smart choice because you can say, yes, we do. And, other people are saying, well, we have something that's hoppy as hell.
Say we have something better than Miller Lite.
Exactly. So when did this come about in the history of the brewery?
A little over a year ago, I think. I want to say early 2017 was when we released it for the first time. I actually happen to drink a lot of Miller Lite. So it was
if you go to the tour, they thank everybody from Chicago.
Yeah. Well, and people actually give me a lot of shit about it because, I'll be back here slugging cans of Miller Lite, and they're like, you own a craft brewery and you brew beer, like, what are you drinking that shit for? And it's like, well, I need water. I need to hydrate too,
Something you can drink all day.
Exactly. But that's kind of where this came about. It was just, I wanted to kind of pay homage to that. Where we are up here in, on the border of Wisconsin and Illinois, we're in Miller country. We're surrounded by most people, my neighbors, a lot of people drink Miller Lite, Bud Light, and that type of stuff, and they don't, everyone kind of associates craft beer with something hoppy as hell, like you said, and it's nice to kind of show people, to me, that's a gateway beer to craft beer. Like, hey, you can have a light lager like the light beer you drink, and it doesn't have to taste like piss. Like, it can actually be really good and nuanced, and you can crush a bunch of them. So
it's an easy introduction for you as a tap manager too, for someone who hasn't been to a craft brewery before and isn't necessarily into the whole craft brewing scene.
Yeah, the number one question we get from people walking in is usually, I'm looking for something light right now, and that's going to be the first beer that we have them try.
It's delicious. It's very easy to drink. I can
Yeah.
drink that all day on a summer day.
Well, the name too is funny, is because it's Stigma Crusher is obviously crushing the stigma of light lagers being water, but also only children are associated. There's a lot of stigmas about being an only child, so
Yeah.
it's kind of a little double entendre going on with the name there.
So speaking of the name Only Child,
Yeah.
back in 2013 when you opened in an 800 square foot warehouse,
Yeah.
how did you come up with the name Only Child, seeing as you have a big family?
Came up with the name Only Child before we opened, and it's because I'm an only child. But when I homebrewed, I worked in the city. I was a beverage director at a little pub on the north side, and I was drinking some of my homebrews with some of our regulars there. I used to like to make labels and name all my homebrews, but I wanted to come up with a name. You know, like everyone who ever brews at home, any home brewer, no matter what, has had the thought, like, maybe one day I could do this, you know, and I had that, and I wanted to name something, and, you know, one of my customers was like, well, if you're starting a business out of passion, you should name it, like, the most defining characteristic about yourself. And I was like, well, it's like, I don't know. I was like, I was adopted. That really screwed me up as a kid. And she's like, no, that sucks. And I was like, well, I'm an only child. And then she's like, Only Child Brewing Company. And then I was just like, it's actually really funny. And like, you could name like a beer like Spoiled Brad, and it just started steamrolling, and then it just stuck, and it went from there. And then I got married and had a bunch of kids, and everyone says, why is it Only Child Brewing when you have an army of children behind you?
You got to ask, though, right?
Because it's about me.
So let's get back to even
Yeah.
before the brewery opened.
Sure.
Tell us about your background, your home brewing background, kind of what you started, and do any of those beers exist now?
Do any of these beers what? I'm sorry.
From your home brewing background, do they exist like in your current lineup?
No, none of. I mean, I used to homebrew. I would turn my kitchen into like a little mini brewery. I did all grain. I had the little, cooler mash tun, and it drove my wife nuts because we would literally had multiple glass carboys in our bedroom at night, just sitting there percolating and doing a little bubbling in our bedroom. And she used to just hate it, but she knew how much I loved it, so she, became just a regular thing in our house. But I think the biggest catalyst to Only Child getting started was my job. I worked at a place called the Grafton Pub in Lincoln Square in Chicago, and was the beer director, beverage director there. I started managing their tap list, the beer list, everything there, and really that was back in from I think it was 2010 to 2013, and that was back until Only Child started. But that was really when Chicago's beer scene was really kind of beginning to just blossom, and I started working with a lot of the distributors, but also a lot of the independent breweries that were self-distributing, Beguile being one of those guys. And I actually got to brew one of my home brew recipes with the guys at Beguile, and we brewed it on a commercial scale and featured it at a beer fest in the city, and that was
Nice.
That was it. At that point, I'm like, all right, I'm doing this. One way or another, I'm going to find a way to make it happen. So being at that job, home brewing, just being surrounded and making a living in beer really just kind of made me decide to take it to the next level. So
Is there any beer in particular that kind of just like, wow, this is amazing?
I did a
beer that inspired you to kind of say, like, there's something out there that's different.
Well, the game changer for me was way back in the day when I had Apocalypse Cow from Three Floyds, because it's like a 11% lactose double IPA, and I'll never forget the first time I had that. I used to live in Mount Prospect, which is actually why the brewery opened in Northbrook to begin with, because we just found a warehouse close to home. But I used to go to the Binnies in Des Plaines. I went there and I saw Apocalypse Cow, and I bought it purely for the artwork because I thought the label was cool. Tried it, left my house immediately, went back to Binny's and bought every bottle of it that they had on the shelf, and was like, something's different in the world of beer now. And I don't know, it was just that was a game changer. But I mean, my biggest influences have always been Half Acre, New Glarus, things like that.
What about you, Charlotte? Are you just along for the ride, or is there something out there that you just got you into this also?
Yeah, actually, so when Ben hired me on, it was through a Craigslist ad, which is a fun story we like telling people
It's
here.
not just for murdering people.
Yeah, it turns out. So I responded to that ad because it had the most unique interview questions I'd ever seen, and one of them being, what's your favorite beer? What's your favorite style of beer? And I was answering those questions, and I think at that time it was It was a Three Floyds beer, wasn't it?
Your favorite beer was Zombie Dust, but your favorite style was Marzin's.
Yes.
And I was like, all right, she likes lagers. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a sucker for a good Oktoberfest. We always joke now, too, like I would have probably put PBR also because that's my go-to light drinking beer, but...
I think that's your favorite beer on the website.
It probably is, yeah.
That's what it says.
Yeah, but that was it. And then, for Only Child, when I came in for my official interview, I had Playtime Never Ends, one of Ben's double IPAs, and again, it was kind of one of those things. I'd never had a beer quite like that. The way it didn't scorch my palate and just left this like really nice smooth finish, I loved it and knew I had to be around it, so that was kind of it for me.
So how long have you been on board with Only Child?
I started 5 weeks after they opened the doors here, so it'll be 3 years in October.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So can you go back to that first facility? Tell us how you run a brewery out of an 800 square foot facility.
Well, the total square footage was almost 1,300, but it had just 2 useless offices in front that we actually, at the time, turned into a kit. We had a futon and a playpen for my young kids and like a bunch of toys and stuff. Back then, before we had 4 kids, we only had 2. My wife, we were self-distributed and we bottled and packaged every ounce of beer we made. So my wife was managing about 140 to 150 accounts all the way down as far as like Aurora and Naperville area, up through the city, the western suburbs, northern suburbs, all the way to the border of Wisconsin. So we were a much different outfit back then. And, we fit our operation in that warehouse because I just had pretty much a little bit bigger than normal homebrew equipment. So it was a learning curve and a learning time as we first started. We recalled a lot of product or swapped out a lot of product. We had some troubles coming out the gate, but we quickly learned. I quickly started researching, reading, asking some of the best people out there, and learning from the best breweries out there, and just growing and growing and growing. And we very quickly realized that original business model was not a long-term feasibility. So that's when we realized we wanted to have a tap room. We wanted to be in front of people. We wanted to serve beer and share beer with our customers rather than just drive around in our cars and drop it off at places and then never see it again.
Let's get into our next beer. What else we got next?
I think up next we have our Munich Helles Lager. It's called HE Double Hockey Sticks. That name's kind of just a gimme. That's, most kids growing up, when they have, there's the S word or the F word, which we actually have a beer named the F word. It's a double IPA we release once a year. So HE Double Hockey Sticks, just with being a Helles Lager, it just kind of seemed all too hilariously fitting. But it just goes back to what you guys will learn about or have learned about me, that I just love good, clean lagers, at 4.8%, and that's just brewed very, very traditional recipe of Vienna malt, Munich malts, and Pilsner malt, and then a Bavarian lager yeast strain, fermented nice and low and slow, and just very clean and crushable.
Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely getting a lot of that Munich flavor coming through, that very Bavarian flavors from the yeast. Great bready, grainy background on it, and it's coming across really clean and light and super crushable here in the summertime.
Yep. The Munich Helles should be the main character coming through on both aroma and taste should be that Pilsner malt and the Munich malt, and it really does come through nice, and that's all I need in a beer.
It's quite delicious. So what capacity do you guys run at here at Only Child?
Well, right now I think we've been steady around 500 barrels annually, and we're going through 90-95% of it out of our tap room. I'm not really concerned with turning into a big behemoth brewery and relying on distribution. I would rather open several small breweries and just have more tap rooms, and that's kind of what we're looking to do. So we definitely want to grow, because if you're not growing, you're stagnant, and no business owner wants that. It's just a matter of how we do grow, and I think that's growing in a more not so linear path. It seems the ordinary next step for a brewery is get more tanks, make more beer, ship out more beer. And that's not really what I want to do.
Well, yours is an interesting story for us, because I think you're the first brewery we've interviewed that has gone from, like you said, your wife was running around and dealing with 150 accounts to how many accounts do you guys have now that you actually deliver to and sell out of besides your tap room? How many are you at right now?
I'd say 30 tops.
See, that's very interesting.
And we used to have about 140, 150, all over the 8 counties of the Chicagoland area, and now we're primarily in Lake County and extremely locally a couple accounts still in the city that we love, but we just, at this point, we just don't have enough beer to get out to people all the time, and our main concern is making sure that we have beer here, for the people that are coming here and in the tap room. Last summer we have eight taps right now. That we'll be looking to add to that as soon as some of these new laws that have just changed go through. But last year during festival season, during summer, we went down to I think 3 or 4 beers left, and that's just a problem we can't have. We want the variety, and we want people coming in here and checking out what we're doing and the beers we're cranking out. So
speaking of festival season,
sure.
Your guys' episode will air right before the Antioch Summer Bash.
Nice.
So
What up, Rick?
Let's give Rick some love, and why don't you tell us about the relationship you have with him, because he's actually the one who turned me on to your guys' brewery.
I'm going to start off with this one. Rick and the Antioch Beer Riot was my first beer fest. I just turned 21, and it was back when it was free, and there were like 10 or 15 breweries inside, and it was awesome. I loved it. And it was actually my first beer fest I poured at for Only Child, too. So it's kind of this cool little, there's a soft spot for Antioch, for Rick, for that store and what they're doing, and the local support that they give us. Ben, kind of just to tell you guys how he knows Rick.
Rick has been one of our very first clients. He's been a supporter since day one. I grew up in Grays Lake, which is just south of Antioch. When we started distributing, even though we were in Northbrook, it was very important for my wife and I to distribute our beers around where we grew up, because we still had family and friends in this area, and we're very proud of what we do and proud of our company and proud of our beer, and we wanted it to be around where we grew up. So Antioch was one of the first ones, and Rick has been awesome since day one. So
awesome. So speaking of the first beer that he actually turned me on to from you guys is Don't Tell Mom the Baby Citrus Dead.
Is what you're drinking right now,
yep.
Right?
And we actually have our other cohort that couldn't be here today, Alex, because he's sick, wanted us to ask the question, because I've shared quite a few of those with him over the years, and he wanted to know, who does your label artwork? Because it's just such a great label with all the 80s references in it.
It's amazing.
And the movie.
Yeah, Chris Tankowitz, what up, Tank, he's just a genius with the artwork. I met him, he was probably 3 sheets to the wind at a little beer fest over in Haynesville. He asked me if I ever considered changing my image and ever considered, a different artist. And I was like, yeah, give me your card, let's talk. And sure enough, I contacted him, and we just started shooting the shit. And I told him I wanted our artwork to be somewhere between Calvin and Hobbes and Batman. And, with that cartoonish type of thing, and all black and white. Everything we do is black and white, monochromatic. And I basically send him a goofy-ass email and say, hey, here's this beer I'm doing, and here's what's in my head. Every single email I send him ends with, does any of that make sense? And he just turns my weird-ass ideas into just gold. And he does a great job. He's really awesome.
Well, the listeners right now are hearing that the volume's going a little bit up. We have bingo night tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the tap room a little bit more.
Sure.
What can someone expect the first time they're here, and what kind of events do you guys hold during the week, and any big ones during the year?
Well, you guys are here on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday night is bingo night, which is actually gets pretty busy. With the rain tonight, I'll be curious to see what type of crowd we get, but bingo night rocks. We do all sorts of different events. Charlotte would be the one to really talk to about that. I think what people can expect when they walk in here is that it's that minimalist environment. We're in a big warehouse in a big factory, kind of off the beaten path in Gurnee. We're not next to all the strip malls and all the chain stores and whatnot. We're in an industrial park, and we have 25-foot ceilings, and it's basically concrete and wood. And no bells and whistles. When we built this place, I essentially built everything in here with my bare hands, and had a buddy or two help me when I had something that was too heavy to lift. You come here because it's different from everything and unique compared to everything else around here, and you're going to meet some cool people that are going to serve you some killer beer.
Yeah, I think that something that kind of sets us apart too, especially from this area, is we really try to make sure that when you come in here, we know who you are. We know what beers you like. We know what styles you're looking for. We know what to make you try. Ben's going to come back. He's going to say hi to you when he's walking through the bar real quick. And people love that. They love knowing that the brewer knows who they are. That's a big deal. And you don't see that at a lot of breweries. So yeah, a lot of our regulars have become family members and friends at this point. They're the people that we want to see all the time.
Yeah, so as you guys are looking to expand more into additional tap rooms, are there any laws in Illinois that either challenge your growth pattern your growth plan, or any laws here in Illinois that facilitate your growth plan?
Well, they just passed legislation. I believe it's supposed to be signed in the next 90 days or something like that. And don't quote me on that 100%. But up until recently, you had to have a brew pub license to sell any other alcohol that you don't manufacture. So if you were a Class 1 brewer like I am, I can't sell other breweries' beers. I can't sell ciders, wines, or spirits. They just passed legislation that changes that, and a Class 1 brewer will now be able to sell other alcohol. So that's great for us because we have a lot of friends that also work in breweries, and we would love to support them and sell our beer here, and sell their beer in our tap room, and also add to our variety. It'd be nice to have a cider on draft because we get tons of people that come in, and husband or wife, vice versa, whatever. One of them's a beer drinker, the other one's not, and one of them wants wine or cider. It would be great to be able to have that because someone comes in here with the sole intention of drinking beer, but their significant other or whoever they're with really isn't that much of a beer drinker. That's going to limit how long they're going to stay. So, that actually, I'm really excited and pumped up about that law. I hope it goes through like they said it was going to in the amount of time. As far as hindrances, not any at our size. I mean, we would have to grow, we would have to multiply in the 1,000-fold before we would have to really start worrying about anything that would hinder our growth, so.
Well, let's continue the tasting here.
Sure.
What's the next beer on tap?
So the next one's going to be No Way Jose. It's a pale ale. They brew with agave and lime zest. This is our number one selling beer across the board.
Hands down. 3 to 1.
Even if you combine some of our other sales like Don't Tell Mom or our barrel-aged stouts, this beer outsells, and the guys cannot brew it fast enough. It was originally made as a house beer for Milwaukee Taco in Libertyville, so it pairs very well with tacos, pizza, other food. But yeah, it's just one of those beers. I would say 1 out of every 3 people walking in the door asks for No Way Jose at some point while they're here.
Yeah. Peter from who used to be the bar manager at like Milwaukee Trace and Milwaukee Taco came in one day and just said, hey, I'm working with my bosses, Lee and Christine, the owners of Milwaukee Taco, and he said they were wondering if you would like to brew a beer that pairs with tacos. And I was just like, let's hug it out, man. Let's do this.
Who doesn't like tacos?
Hell yes, I want to brew that beer. Come on. In addition to the organic agave and lime zest, we also use New Zealand Motueka hops and Pacific Jade hops, which are both also known for their citrus and lime zest characteristics. So it's one of those beers that it's just people dig it like crazy, and we just brew it. In one of those tanks, there's always No Way Jose. There's never not.
Great. So what percentage of your production is it? Would No Way Jose
I don't know
be?
that number. I'm a note taker, not a rememberer of things. So I would have to actually pull that up on my computer to look at what percentage. But I will tell you that as far as a percentage of sales annually, second place is Stigma Crusher. That is No Way Jose is 3 times the amount of sales as the second place beer. So we sell a ton of it.
Yeah, I'm digging the hops, the Motueka and the
Motueka.
Motueka.
Yeah.
The Motueka are really coming through, and that dash of salt at the end just finishes it off perfectly.
Yep.
I really want a taco right now. Seriously.
So do I, man.
How important do you think the name is for this one? Because something like this does stand out,
Yeah, well, it was almost immediate when they said that it was, going to be with tacos. We're like, okay, well, that's No Way Jose. It's a Spanish name, and it also fits with Only Child. Like, we derive so many of our names from things that kids and parents always say, and it's like, No Way Jose. Come on. It's a no-brainer.
It's perfect.
And like I said, we like to have fun with it.
All right, I think this is a good time to take a little break. So we'll come back right after some beer news and talk some more Only Child Brewing. Be right back.
That's right.
Welcome to Beer News. Certified fresh as of July 12th, 2018. The easily accessible beer this week is Boulevard Brewing's Hibiscus Goza. It's been a hot summer, and this sour ale brewed with sea salt, coriander, and hibiscus flowers goes down easy at just 4.2% ABV. It's a tangy, sweet and sour ale with a refreshing citrus character. In beer news, Eagle Park production continues to increase as they have yet another special release. On July 14th, they release Booze for Breakfast. Their Imperial Breakfast Stout with bourbon barrel-aged coffee, Madagascar vanilla, and Vermont maple syrup, which will be released in a very limited amount of 22-ounce bottles at the tap room only. Members will be able to pick up their bottles the day before as usual. A bourbon barrel-aged version is currently in the barrel and will be released when it's ready. Founders Curmudgeon's Better Half, originally the third release in the brewery's Backstage series, returns in August. In February 2012, the brewery released Curmudgeon's Better Half as part of their Backstage series, now known as the Barrel Age series. Curmudgeon's Better Half is a familiar old ale brewed with molasses and aged in maple syrup bourbon barrels, similar to Founders Canadian Breakfast Stout. It now returns 6 years later. In brewery news, Venture Brew Co. is now open. This unique brewery and coffeehouse hybrid is located at 5519 West North Avenue in Milwaukee. Get your fix of caffeine in the morning, then return for an after-work beer. Registration for Central Waters River Run is now open. All participants will get a commemorative bottle of Central Waters beer and a free pint. All registered runners and walkers will also have the ability to purchase one bottle of Black Gold at packet pickup. Cigar City Brewing of Tampa, Florida is now distributing in Wisconsin. Now's your chance to pick up that can of High Life IPA you've heard so much about. Goose Island continues to add new varietals in the Bourbon County Stout lineup. In addition to the already announced wheat wine, Horchata and Neapolitan are new. The remaining varietals are Coffee Stout, Reserve, aged in 12-year-old Elijah Craig bourbon barrels, Proprietors, which this year is with cacao nibs and chocolate added, Bramble Rye Stout, aged in rye whiskey barrels and blended with raspberries and blackberries, and Vanilla Stout. In festival news, Badger State Brewing Company presents Badger State Block Party 2018 on July 28th, an all-day outdoor festival featuring craft beer, food trucks, music, and block party fun. Tickets are on sale now. Firkin Fest will soon be here, and we're excited for every day, counting down. The fest is on July 21st, and only a few tickets remain. In general news, the Tap Takeover Podcast will be covering the great taste of the Midwest this year. We're asking you for input as to which breweries you would like to see us talk to and any questions you might want asked. Email us at taptakeoverpodcast@gmail.com with anything you want to know about the Great Taste vendors. We'll also be having an upcoming contest where we'll be selecting 2 lucky winners to record a tasting episode with us in the Solid Non-Fail Studios. We will be sampling the original Smells Like Bean Spirit, Imperial Smells Like Bean Spirit, and every single one of the variants. Stay tuned for more info and a video detailing this upcoming contest. This has been Beer News.
That's right.
All right, we are back. Thanks for the beer news. Amazing as always. So let's continue the tasting. What do we got next?
That beer you got there is called Dad Jokes. That's American IPA with almost no bitterness that you can find whatsoever, but just all late edition hops and dry hopping. That comes with Apollo, Azaka, Mosaic, and Cascade. Very kind of fruit, citrusy forward. Perfect kind of summertime crusher of an IPA.
Also very pale. What's the grain bill on this?
That is Pilsner as the base malt, red wheat, and flaked oats. No specialty malt whatsoever. So that's almost as light as you can, color-wise at least, make a beer.
Yeah, it's like opaque almost.
Yeah.
Jimbo, what do you think?
I'm liking it. I'm liking zero IBU, essentially.
Sure.
So, yeah, it's that lack of bitterness, especially in a hot, humid day like today where it gets bitey with those high IBUs. This goes down much smoother. Do you do anything with the water chemistry, too? Do you, increase calcium carbides?
We use, with hoppy beers, we usually we use calcium sulfate, but all of our brewing water is carbon filtered, and then Lake Michigan water makes great beers.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great. It's actually a good intro for IPAs, you know? It's
Yeah, 'cause it doesn't scorch your palate.
Exactly,
It's not overly
exactly.
bitter.
My girlfriend would love this.
Yeah, I mean, we do make IPAs that are very, very bitter, but we also, at this point, we released this beer for Father's Day weekend. The name Dad Jokes. I'm a total cheeseball. I love dad jokes. I love corny shit, but it all kind of went well together. But we wanted this to really just be like one of those refreshing, like if I'm outside and I'm grilling and I'm hanging out with the kids and we're in our backyard and I want to drink something, if I want hops, I don't want my palate scorched. I don't want to be, a lot of IPAs when they're overly bitter, they make you thirsty. They make you want water. I mean, that quenches your thirst. I didn't want bitter for a good summer IPA. I wanted smooth.
Well, it's got a very nice soft mouthfeel to it.
Yeah.
Sort of like a New England style
Well,
almost, too.
It essentially is a New England IPA recipe. I just didn't use that yeast strain that is popular with the Conan yeast strain that's popular with those.
What's your best dad joke that you've pulled on your kids?
Why can't you hear a pterodactyl go into the bathroom?
Why?
Because the P is silent. I don't know. I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah,
That
is bad.
it's really bad, yeah. But that's the type of humor, I don't know. I can't think of any other ones on the spot.
Well, speaking of your beer names, you touched on it before. Where do you come up with some of these names? You just sort of spitball them while you're making the beer?
No, I mean a lot. Well, sometimes we brew a beer and we don't even have a name for it until we're kegging it. Or other times, a lot of them have been. My staff has named beers. My kids do stupid shit all the time that makes me think I still want to name a beer. This is why we can't have nice things, because I always say that to my kids. They're just things like that, we have beers, Spoiled Brat, Time Out. It's not all meant to be super mushy kid stuff. It's just meant to be kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of humor, that most people, whether you have kids or not, have probably heard or experienced or can laugh at from something in their life.
So I got two. Where did they come from? So first was the F word, and
yeah.
why do you only brew it once a year? And then together we rule the galaxy. We'll rule the galaxy.
Sure. Okay, well, the F word is just because that kind of goes back to the HE double hockey sticks. Is a lot of kids think oh my God, Dad, he said the F word, and it was just that's, I don't know, I think that's a funny name for a beer, the F word.
What the fuck was he thinking?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Together we'll rule the galaxy. My family and I are all crazy into Star Wars, so that was kind of like a father-son.
And his entire staff.
Yeah, everyone.
Entire staff. We all love them.
Everyone is, and we release that every May. I always try and get it done, but we've never actually got it done for May the 4th. But we at least release it in May.
So as you look to expand, additional tap rooms, you talked about getting into sours and having your sour room. Any types of sours that you're going to be looking at to kind of start off with?
Any types of sours to start out?
Versus kettle sours versus something you're going to.
For a while, though.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've been doing sour. We had sours on here since day one when we opened. We have all these every barrel you're sitting by they're all sours. We actually Lance from Omega Yeast Labs in Chicago isolated the Brettanomyces strain from the Driefonteinen in Belgium. So we have that strain of Brett. We have some dregs from some Jackie O's Bretts that they use. We have all sorts of different wild ales. None of them are kettle soured. They're all just sitting anywhere from, I'd say the least amount of time they sit in any of these punch-ons is about 9 months. Some of them sit in there for 15 months.
All right.
12 to 15 months.
Spirit barrels or wine barrels, both?
A little bit of both. I turn, anytime we get fresh dump bourbon barrels, I'll usually age a big old stout in them, and then I'll rinse them all out and turn them into sour fermenters, essentially, and just ferment wild beers in them.
So is there any concern with contamination? I know we've been to different breweries; they have their own room.
Always. I wish.
I mean, because this is Andy being this close to one is not good. No.
Mine infected.
Yeah, no. I mean, unfortunately, at this point, we just don't have the space or the capability of having a separate facility for the sours. So there is always the possibility in the last, after going through the initial troubles that we had with some infections early on when we first started, my wife and I sat down when we decided to move forward and come to Gurnee, decided that the most important thing, no matter what, owning this business is quality control. Since we've been in this facility and had sours, we've dumped 2 batches down that have got some wild yeast in. Unfortunately, that's a risk. We keep our cleaning and our sanitation game is on point. Brett is killable. It just, unfortunately, it's kind of a roll of the dice, and it can unfortunately happen sometimes. But we detect everything before it would ever. None of the sours are packaged anyways, and none of the beers that would be packaged come into contact with any of the stuff. For the most part, we're all right.
All right, so let's get back to Charlotte and tell us more about some of these awesome events that you guys are having here.
Yeah, Ben's pretty cool with letting me do whatever I want to do here, which makes my job really easy. We were the first ones in Lake County to start doing yoga in the tap room, so we still do that usually once a month. I've done a couple big art shows, which I have a big art show planned later this fall. But coming up next, we've got a Homebrew Fest in July. We're planning on taking some of the proceeds for the tickets to donate to local Gurnee area school district for school supplies for the upcoming school year. But we've got about 20 homebrewers in the area, mostly from Lake County. Ciders, beers, meads, and we're going to be sampling them out, and we're letting the crowd pick their favorite beer. And then we've got Perfect Brewing Supply in Libertyville, Grow Masters here in Gurnee, and then Babel Homebrew Club, they're sponsoring it with us. So we've got glassware and everything, some really cool prizes. So we've got that coming up. And then our third anniversary is in August 18th. Last year was...
That's a party.
Yeah, last year was the coolest party, and this year we plan on making it bigger and better. We block off part of the parking lot. We don't do a ticketed event, so it's completely free for people to come to the event. Ben is really cool about setting aside any of our barrel-aged beers, so our sours and stouts throughout the year. He sets aside a keg of it, and then we re-release them for the anniversary party throughout the day.
So it's usually beer that you hold back? Or
Yeah,
is it,
yeah.
It's a lot of
full
new,
tap list.
it's a lot of new stuff, full tap list, and set aside kegs
Yeah,
from
so
some
you'll
of the
see
other
stuff from like last year, like our Pinot Noir barrel-aged sour, or some of our big stouts that we've done are set aside, and then we re-release them for that day. Bands all day, food trucks coming out. It's pretty cool. We had like probably close to 300 people last year. I think we'll probably hit 500 this year is the goal, so that's what we're expecting. So it's a party for sure. That's what we're most excited for all summer.
Doing our first, we got picked in the lottery too to do our pour at Great Taste of the Midwest for the first time this summer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys there. We're covering it.
We've been on the waiting list for a long time, so that's cool.
What are you bringing there?
I don't know yet, but Stigma Crusher will be there for sure because I need something to drink. So
Might have to have a few of those.
yeah, for sure. That's a great fest beer.
All right, well, let's keep the tasting going then. What's the next beer here?
That's a glass of barrel-aged Question Authority. Question Authority was
man, you are ramping it up here, huh?
It was an imperial stout that we brewed with Himalayan pink salt, and we poured that beer at the Border Wars Beer Fest in Kenosha last summer and won Best in Show and Best Beer with that beer. Not even the barrel-aged version, just the regular version. We put some of that in a barrel and let it sit since last year and added cocoa nibs in the barrel to have that dark chocolate kind of go with the pink salt, and it just turned into something a little special. So kind of excited about that.
What's this clocking in at?
What's that?
What is it clocking in at for ABV?
It's boozy.
It's a little over 11%. It's big. I mean, I think it was 10.2 as a base beer, and it was put in a fresh dump barrel. So
wow,
it's still super tasty. Man.
Yeah, again, that salt addition at the end just kind of really ends the finish.
You get the salt at the end?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, that's the finish. It's just like, it's awesome.
It's dangerous because it makes you more thirsty.
Yep.
That's the point, right?
Yep.
I like to say it's a good summer stout. It's not too heavy in body, and we like to say it's stout season year-round. There's always somebody coming in looking for a stout, no matter what time of year, even if it's 90 degrees outside. So I think this is a good stout for weather like this. It's drinkable, and it's a little, the salt, I think it just kind of adds to it. It just makes you want more of it, keeps you going.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Andy, what do you think?
I think it's really good. I mean, I like it is. The mouthfeel is phenomenal.
That's usually my analysis.
It is. I'm a big mouthfeel guy when it comes to stouts, and the mouthfeel is, it's soft on your palate.
Yep. I'm a mouthfeel guy when it just comes to beer in general. I mean, it can make or break the beer. So, I mean, what's funny is that there are different brewing techniques and things that you do to manipulate the mouthfeel intentionally. Find a lot of our beers, a lot of the style, a lot of what I like dry. With IPAs, with pale ales, with lagers, I like dry, crisp, and just smooth, easy drinking beers. We mash a lot of our beers on the lower side of the temperature spectrum for mash to achieve that. But yeah, I'm with you. Mouthfeel it's everything. You can have a really good beer, but if you perfect the mouthfeel, you can have a great beer. So it's a big deal.
Awesome. So as we kind of ramp down here,
sure.
You have a huge following here, it seems, in Lake County.
Yeah.
Tell some of our Wisconsin listeners why they should just drop the kids off at Great America and come here for the day.
Well, they can bring the kids too if they want, or drop them off. But Wisconsin is known for beer. It's beer country, but we're right here on the border. And I've grown up in this area. Wisconsin's been a huge part of my life, and we have that same mentality that a lot of Scotty folk do. So they like good beer. They know what they like, and they know how to drink beer, and it's kind of what we do. It's kind of what we do best here. So I would invite all of them to come check it out and hang out and drink with us.
And can you tell us?
Yeah, I think Ben makes really approachable beers, especially certain parts of Wisconsin. I think they're not looking for those crazy hoppy beers. They want beers like Spotted Cow, and I think Ben makes really, his lagers especially, are very approachable. They're easy to drink, and I think a lot of people in this area, northern Illinois, northern Lake County, and southeast Wisconsin and stuff, that's the kind of beer they're looking for.
Well, I guess one thing, as we're wrapping up, like Andy said, one thing we've kind of discovered as we've met with a bunch of brewers is that communities are very small. I'm just wondering, do you do collaborations with other brewers in Chicago? And can you tell us a little bit about that, or any big ones coming up?
We did a collaboration. Our most recent one, we collaborated right here in Grays Lake, which is actually where I grew up and went to high school. My parents still live there. They have Light the Lamp Brewery, and we teamed up. They're a hockey-themed brewery, so we teamed up and did a beer called Hockey Mom, which was a kind of a non-traditional style Kolsch. We did a regular Kolsch recipe, but added just a hint of chocolate malt to it, and because we released it in October when hockey season started. So we wanted to do something a little different, and that's kind of what collaborations usually are about. It's kind of skewing those normal stylistic boundary lines and doing something different. But that was awesome. It was a lot of fun. Dan Ray, the head brewer over there, is wicked. He does just amazing things. But yeah, as of right now, that's really that was our most recent one. I don't have anything on the docket. I got so much going on, like I was talking about earlier, with the second location, that I haven't thought further ahead to other things. But I need to. I definitely need to.
So Ben, Charlotte, thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy week here. I know we're coming up on the 4th of July as we're recording. Anything you'd like to leave our listeners with about Only Child?
Life is short. Play more beer darts.
I was going to go along the lines of something like, come party with us, who can try and out shotgun us, but yeah, something like that.
Sounds like a challenge.
We've been known to do it a few times.
Okay. For me, this is Andy.
Jesus?
I'm Jim.
Charlotte?
And Ben.
This has been the Tap Takeover Podcast, another solid non-fail production.
Thanks, guys.